Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coast Vineyard. My name is MaryAnn Nguyen-Kwok. I am the associate pastor here at Coast. And this past Friday, we found out that one of our family members was in close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID. And so we're quarantining this weekend and just trying to keep everyone safe. So that means that this morning I'm going to be preaching from my home via this video. Well, today we are going to continue in our sermon series in the Gospel of John. We're going to be looking at the 4th chapter. Now, in this chapter, we find that Jesus goes to a popular meeting spot, and then he runs into a Samaritan woman, and then he has a conversation there. Well, this week, while I was thinking about this chapter, I started thinking about TV shows and how a lot of these TV shows have something in common. Now, I want to see if you can see what I mean, whether you watch these shows or not. Let's just see. So, in the popular TV show Friends, they had a coffee shop called Central Perk. In Gilmore Girls, they had Luke's Diner. In Frasier, they had Cafe Nervosa. And in Saved by the Bell, they had The Max. So what would you say that they had in common? Well, they all had a popular meeting spot. They all had a place to go and hang out. And when they would go there, a lot would happen. A lot of conversations, a lot of laughter and jokes and tears, and even some new friendships. Now, have you ever had a hangout spot like that? When I was in college, my hangout spot was the library. Now, you might think, okay, that doesn't sound like a very fun hangout spot. But if you've ever been to UCSD, you know that the library has a very unique design. And as a part of that design, there is actually an underground floor known as the basement. Now, that's where I would hang out. For some reason, the librarians just weren't very strict about enforcing noise down there. And so it was the perfect place to go and to study and to hang out because there were a lot of tables and we can talk and study and laugh, and no one said anything. So, I don't know who started hanging out there first, but I know that, one of my friends invited me to go there, and then, then we invited our friends, and other friends invited other friends, and then other friends invited other friends. And so basically we had a network of friends just going to the basement to hang out and to study. And so, sometimes I would run into one of my friends on campus and we would just say, hey, I'll meet you in the basement later, or I'll see you at the basement of the library. I always look forward to going there because I knew that I would find someone there that I could study with or talk to. I knew that I would get some studying done, and also I would also get to meet some new friends. So what about you? Where have you had a hangout spot with friends? So right now we're going to go into a breakout group, about 3 or 4, and we're just going to take a couple of minutes to share in our groups about a hangout spot that we've had and what would happen when you would go there. All right, let's get back together again. Let's return back to our seats and gather back into our big group. Yeah, so we're going to be reading from John 4 this morning, and just for the sake of time, we won't read the whole chapter. We're just going to read just enough so that we can get a general overview of what happens in this story. But this morning, we will focus on verses 3 to 7. So let's start John 4, starting from verse 1. Now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although, in fact, it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God, and who it is that asked you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." Going on to verse 13. Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water from the well will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water, welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." Going on to verse 23, Jesus says, "A time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the Spirit and in truth." The woman said, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Going on to verse 28. Then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" They came out of the town and made their way toward him. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me everything I ever did." So here in this chapter, we find that Jesus went through Samaria, stopped by a well, encountered a woman there, and then he asked her for water. Now, because Jesus asked her for water, he ends up having a conversation with her, and then she ends up believing in Jesus. After this, she goes into her town, and then she tells the town about Jesus, and then the entire town believes in Jesus. So what we find here is that Jesus makes an impact on this woman, and then this woman makes an impact on an entire town. Now, wouldn't it be something if we could make that kind of impact? I believe that most of us would say that we would love to make a positive impact on others. We would love to make a difference. We would love to lead people to Jesus so that they could experience hope and healing and wholeness. Now, here in this story, we find that this is what Jesus does. And all of it begins with the choices that Jesus made. The choices Jesus made influence the impact that he made. And so this leads us to this morning's big idea. And the big idea is this: the choices we make influence the impact that we make. In this story, Jesus gives us an example of choices that we could follow, which have the potential for leading us to making an impact. The choices are the path we take, the place we go, and the vulnerability we offer. And this morning, we're going to unpack these choices. First, it's the path we take. The path we take has potential to influence the impact we make. In verse 4, it says, "So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria." Jesus was leaving Judea in the south and going to Galilee in the north. He chose the direct route from Judea to Galilee, which meant going through Samaria. Now, while the passage says that he had to go through Samaria, the truth is that he didn't actually have to take that route. There was actually another way that he could have gone. Now, he could have gone another way, and he probably should have gone another way, because taking that direct route would mean that he'd have to run into Samaritans. And Samaritans and Jews just didn't get along. But Jesus chose the path through Samaria because he knew that the path we take can influence the impact we make. Jesus went through Samaria on purpose because he had a mission. His mission was to find worshipers who would worship God in spirit and in truth. And he knew that he would find some of those worshipers in Samaria. And so here we see the importance of the paths that we choose to take. Because Jesus chose that path. He met the Samaritan woman and he made an impact on her life. Now Jesus, instead of going out of his way to avoid the Samaritans, Jesus went out of his way to encounter them. Now, what about for us? As we seek to be a blessing to our neighbors and to our coworkers, we may find it helpful to consider the paths that we take on a day-to-day basis. What are the paths, the routes, the ways that we go daily, whether it's to go for a walk or a run, to take our kids to school, to go to our office, or to get our cup of coffee? What are the paths that we take? And if there isn't a path that we take regularly, is there a path that we can create where we can take regularly so that we can run into people on purpose? Now, when I worked as a researcher for UCSD, every day when I got into the office, I would take the long way to my desk. Now, the long way to my desk was to go down the long hallway and to peek my head into every office in the hallway to say hi to all of my coworkers. Now, this gave me a chance at the start of each day to make a connection with every person. Now, as a result of my doing this every day, my coworkers got to know me, and this made a way for conversations. And also, because I did this daily, even my coworker, who wasn't exactly a people person, began to warm up to me and to open up to me. Now, if we choose to walk on the same path every day at about the same time, we may end up encountering the same people. We may get to meet them and make connections with them, and then this could lead us to finding ways to help them or to bless them when the need arises. The path we take can influence the impact we make. So I'd like to invite us to think about pathways. What's a path that you take or could take which would allow you to meet people? Now, looking at the passage, we learn that another choice that we can make is place. The place we go has potential to influence the impact we make. In verse 6, it says, Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. The well was a popular meeting place because it was the source for water. It would be the place where people would gather in the morning to get all the water that they needed for the rest of the day. And of course, when people gathered together, they would have lively conversations and lively discussions. It was the hangout spot. Now, the well was also a natural place for travelers to take a rest. Now, we know that this happened a couple times in the Bible, and when this happened, it actually ended up being an important meetup for some people. For example, Jacob had been on a long journey, and then he stopped at a well. There he ended up meeting his future wife, Rachel, there. And Isaac's future wife, Rebecca, was also met at a well. The well was the place where people gathered. So it made sense that Jesus ended up at the well, and because he chose that spot, he was able to meet the Samaritan woman and have an impact on her life. So where is the place where people gather in your neighborhood or in your workplace? Now, in my neighborhood, everyone gathers at the local park. Now, I've seen adults get together to play basketball and to play handball there. And I've seen families gather to watch their kids play on the playground. And I have run into many people walking their dogs every single day. Now, many of you know, we recently adopted a dog named Bella. Now, Bella has been the reason why I have been getting out of the house and going to the park every day. Now, it's the result of that daily walk on the same path and to the same place that I've been able to meet many of my neighbors. Now, one day, Bella and I ran into another little dog, and Bella wanted to say hi, and so they said hi to each other, and I kind of waved at this dog's owner. And then, a few days later, we actually ran into them again, and since it was our second time meeting them, I was able to kind of chat with this neighbor a little bit more. And then I think the next day, we ran into them once again, and that time we talked even longer. And as we talked to each other, we found out that we had some things in common. And one of the things, it just seemed like Bella just really liked this other dog and wanted to play with him. And so I just said, I think Bella would really benefit from being able to play with another dog. And so we exchanged numbers, and then I texted her one day and said, "Oh, can we get our dogs together to play together?" And so we got to meet up, and our dogs played, and we got to know each other more. And she and I have actually become friends now. It's been really great getting to know her, and to the point where when she went on vacation, I was able to help her by getting the mail for her. And so it's been so great making this connection. And all of it started because I kept going back to the place where people gather. Now, as we are all hoping to make an impact in our community, it's going to be helpful to figure out where the popular hangout spot is for our community and start hanging out there. Now, during COVID, we moved into our neighborhood during COVID, and we never went to the park. We never went anywhere, and so it was hard for us to meet people. But it was once we started going out there, that's when we started meeting people. But maybe there's not really a local park in your neighborhood where everyone hangs out, but there's probably a local coffee shop or a local restaurant or a gym where everyone hangs out. Now, in the old neighborhood that Sam and I lived in, the local hangout spot, the popular spot, was actually the library. The library would always hold these events, whether it was for Lunar New Year or Halloween, or they even had like a special Harry Potter day. People would go there. People would gather, and people would make friends there, and make connections there. So that was the local hangout spot. When I was working as a researcher, the hangout spot was the break room. And when I would choose to go there to have my breaks or to have my lunch, then I had the opportunity to talk to my coworkers and make connections instead of what I actually naturally wanted to do, which was just stay in my cubicle and eat my lunch efficiently and then get on with my workday. But when we choose to go where everyone else is hanging out, then we're able to just find opportunities to make connections. So where is a place that we go or could choose to go that could lead to relationships? I want to invite us to think about our local gathering place and how making it our hangout spot has potential to influence the impact that we make. Now, the last thing we learn from this passage about a choice we can make that influences the impact we make is vulnerability. The vulnerability we offer, or our willingness to share our life, can make an impact. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" Jesus was tired, hungry, and thirsty. And he wasn't afraid to admit it. He wasn't afraid to ask for help. Jesus, though being fully God, was also fully human. And he didn't hide the fact that he had the same human limitations as us. Now, there are many days where I wish that I didn't have human limitations. I wish that I didn't get tired and have to take a rest. And I wish that I didn't get hungry and have to eat. Now, how many of you know the term hangry? Hangry. It's kind of a new made-up word that means that you get so hungry that you just become an angry person. Now, you might be, the nicest, sweetest person, but when you've gone past your limit in hunger, then you become a totally different person. Now, many of you know my husband, Sam. He's the kindest and the nicest person. But when he hasn't eaten in a really long time, he's been known to get a little bit hangry. And, so we have actually this joke that when he gets hangry, then I'm allowed to give him this bear. It's Grumpy Bear. And then it helps him remember to reset. Now, perhaps you also can identify with this. The great thing about human limitations is that we're not alone in them. Every person on this earth can relate to our limits. And so like Jesus, we can share openly about our limits. We don't have to pretend that as Christians we have it all together. We have limits. And when we share our limits and our weaknesses, this opens the door for us to make connections. Now, one of my limitations is my height. I've shared this before, but I feel embarrassed whenever I can't reach something. So for example, right before Christmas, I had to go shopping. And of course, my very tall husband was not willing to brave the crazy Christmas crowd. And so I went shopping on my own. And then there I was at Old Navy trying to reach a pair of pants that was just way too high up. I don't know why they put the pants that high up, but it was way high up. And, when that happens, I always try to strategize. What can I do to try to get them? And so many times, if you ever see me in the store, I'm like kind of jumping, like, can I get it if I just jump high enough? Now, of course, that didn't work. It was really high. And so I had to just work myself up to like, okay, I'm going to go ask someone for help. And so then I go ask someone for help. And every single time, it's fine. It's no big deal. The employee is always happy to help me. And what I realize also is that when I do ask for help, it always leads to conversation. It always leads to connection. And what I find is that when I'm willing to share even more vulnerably than just human limitations, it's that it makes the way for even deeper connections. Now, what I mean by this, recently, I shared with another parent how I've struggled in the past with losing my temper with my kids. Like, it was really a struggle, especially when they were little, and my patience was constantly tried. And when I shared this, it really opened the way so that the other parent just felt more comfortable in sharing her own struggles with me as well. And then this led the way for us to be able to encourage each other and support each other. Now, Jesus was willing to admit a need. So we also can admit our needs and our vulnerabilities and our limitations. When we do this, it opens the door to being able to make connections with others. Now, this could mean that they could encourage us, or this could mean that we could encourage them. In that place of connection, we'll be able to make an impact. So, through the time that Jesus spent in Samaria, we learn that the choices we make can influence the impact we make on others. And this includes the path we take, the place we go, and the vulnerability we offer. When Jesus chose the path to Samaria on purpose, went to the well, and admitted his need for water, it resulted in the blessing of many. So as we close, I'd like to create some space for us to share with each other the paths and the places that we can choose, which could open the way for us to develop relationships with others around us, and so that we could be a blessing to them. So let's take a moment and get back into our small groups and share in our small groups, is there a path you take or can take, or a place you go or can go regularly that allows you to meet people? And what are the opportunities you see for relationship and connection? So go ahead and get into your small groups and share. And if you have time, you can even pray for each other. And then after a couple of minutes, Patrick is going to get back up and he's going to lead us in a final song of worship. All right, I hope you have a great time of discussion in your groups.